Hey guys, thank you for stopping by at Building Wealth with Rajiv. In the current episode, I talked to Warren. Warren is a longtime bull, a Tesla bull. He follows Tesla very closely. Actually, he runs his own YouTube channel as well. Last I talked to Warren was some time ago when Tesla was about $400 billion company, and now it's 1 trillion. Warren and I discussed how big Tesla could be in 2028, various possible revenue scenarios, gross profit scenarios from various businesses like RoboTaxi, Optimus, energy, conventional auto business. Hope you find the discussion useful. For such meaningful conversations, do follow my channel. Hey Warren, thank you so much. We are talking after 2 years. I know you don't remember, but that's okay because you're a busy man. Yeah. So your
Early
first love.
Alzheimer's.
No, it doesn't matter. Your first love is Tesla, and it's kind of first love for me as well, but not as much as it's yours. Yeah. Uh,
I would say my first love is SpaceX.
your first love
Um,
is yeah. That's how you started investing in Tesla. Last time you
that's
told
how I
me.
started investing in Tesla. That's how I started making YouTube videos was
Yeah,
about
yeah,
SpaceX.
yeah, yeah. I know how impressed you were with that, and you think that should be a national day or some holiday that kind of
Global holiday, December 21, 2015 should be a
yeah.
global holiday.
I
First
remember
landing
that.
of an orbital rocket booster.
Yeah, nice. So, okay, so maybe it's your second love, but it's still pretty intense as I
Oh
see.
yeah.
Where are you on Tesla right now? The Q2 was, if you look at the numbers only, it was pretty. I don't want to go in detail in Q2, but like, how did you? I know you're not looking at quarterly numbers, but what was your um off the cuff reaction to Q2 numbers?
Well, I mean, the quarterly numbers weren't great and they weren't terrible. It depends on what your expectations are.
Hmm.
Um, the cash pile was roughly flat. I think revenue was up on the previous quarter. I think Megapack was up on a year ago. Right, energy storage. But the real driver isn't how much money are they making selling cars. That's not the future of the company. The future is they now have a robo-taxi network. They're now growing their robo-taxi network. It's not, will they succeed in the robo-taxi network? Will Optimus succeed?
Yeah,
The two big drivers of the future value of Tesla are not car sales.
yeah,
They're delivering rides, selling rides, and selling robot services, and or selling robots, humanoid robots. And I think that we got the robo taxi network operating before the Q2 numbers came in.
yeah.
It's now expanded in Austin. It's expanded to California with a safety driver for now because that's required by the regulations. Elon just said today that they're gonna open it up to anyone next month. I think he's referring to Austin, but we don't know, which means they're gonna have to dump a lot more cars into the network because their prices are compelling. Um, I think the interesting question that I don't know the answer to is, as the robo taxi network grows, at what point does the market figure it out? There's
Yeah.
people like me, Ark Invest, Stephen Mark Ryan, CERN Basher. There's a whole bunch of us.
Hmm.
We've done the math. We see, okay, and in case your audience hasn't heard this before, suppose Tesla has, this is an oversimplification, but suppose Tesla has 10 million robo taxis in its fleet, and the average robo taxi makes $50,000 a year in gross profit.
Warren, if you excuse me, I'll come to it.
Yeah.
I'll come to it in stages. And
Okay.
I think this is a big question for me also. I mean, on your estimates. Now, I just want to get like, as we discussed, a kind of 3 years down the line picture from you. And I think you're good with numbers. You're extremely good with numbers. And I thought I'll just pick your brains on those numbers. I mean, you talk numbers all the time and you kind of, and back of the envelope calculations are pretty good.
Napkin math, yes.
Yeah, napkin math seems to be good for a lawyer. Yeah, for an ex
For a lawyer.
for an ex-lawyer. So,
I was never that good of a lawyer. That's why.
you speak well, though. I mean, anyway, let's talk about 2028, 3 years from now, and what's Tesla looking to you? Let's say, in terms of first, let's start by their vehicle business, which is like right now the majority. Where does it go? Do you have any delivery expectations on the numbers, EV
My
numbers?
expectation is in 2028, they will not be selling cars. They'll be selling, I shouldn't say that. They will sell Model S and X and Cybertruck in small numbers, maybe.
Okay.
But they will, they may be doing fleet sales in markets where they can't run their own robotaxi fleet. They will sell cars. They won't be selling cars to consumers to drive for personal use.
Are you sure
Um,
about it? It's
no,
complete.
of course I'm not. Of course I'm not sure.
Uh,
But you're asking me my expectation.
yeah,
My
yeah, yeah,
expectation
yeah.
is when you have a robo-taxi, when you have a vehicle you can operate as a robo-taxi, and it will make $50,000 a year in gross profit for 10 years. That's $500,000 in profit that you're going to make from this vehicle.
Mm.
Would you sell that to a customer for $50,000?
I
You're
mean,
only going to make, and you're going to make $10,000 in gross profit. When if you run it as a robo-taxi, you make $10,000 in gross profit in less than 3 months. Why
so
would you sell it to a customer?
yeah, I
Why
think if I
why
would,
would you not just run it as a robo-taxi?
I would think from that angle. So they would sell robotaxis to the consumers, or they will not, or they will just not.
Okay, let me put it this way.
Yeah,
There's selling cars to people who are going to run them as robo-taxis, and they're selling cars to people for personal use.
yeah,
In other
that's
words, my car sits outside, sits in the driveway 20 plus hours a day,
yeah,
probably 22 hours a day. And I drive it probably less than 2 hours a day, but let's call it 22 hours a day driving and 22 hours sitting there.
yeah.
A robo-taxi operates 12, 16 hours a day, sits 6 hours a day. Um, you own a vehicle. Okay, let's put it in your
Yeah,
hands.
okay,
You have a vehicle and you've got two people who want to buy it from you.
yeah.
Okay. And one of them expects to make $500,000 in gross profit from the vehicle, and they want to pay you $350,000 for it. And the other guy wants it for personal use, and he wants to pay you $50,000 for it. Who are you selling it to?
Obviously, I'm going to sell to the first one. The
Okay, so now you're Tesla, and you can make the $500,000 in gross profit yourself, or you can sell it to somebody else and make $10,000. Why would you ever sell a car for $10,000 in gross profit if you can make $350,000, $500,000 in gross profit?
is it going to be that simple though?
I don't understand what's complicated. What's the complication? What am I missing? I mean, the complication is okay. I expect that roughly half of the United States
Hmm.
will allow legal robo-taxi use. Half the population of the United States will have access to legal robo-taxi use by the end of 2027, if not earlier.
Okay,
I expect China will largely allow Tesla robo-taxi to operate, all of China, which is a large market,
okay,
before the end of 2027.
okay.
But you were asking about 2028, just to be clear.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
we may be talking about 2026, that we have widespread access to robotaxi in the United States and China. I expect Europe to be slow. I expect certain states in the United States to be slow, unless the federal government steps in and
Mhm.
opens it up more. Um, I think some other countries will be slow. Some other countries might adopt quickly. But just on the US market alone, you could have 10 million robotaxis. And Tesla can't make that many by the end of 2028. They don't have the production capacity to get to 10 million by the end of 2028. So every vehicle they make in 2027, assuming they have like a fairly large market for robotaxi, every vehicle they make goes into the robotaxi network. Why would you sell a vehicle to a customer?
Mm.
Maybe the China vehicles don't go into the US robotaxi network, but they'll go into the China robotaxi network. Why would you sell a Model Y to Warren in Thailand for $60,000? And they'll make less profit in China. But okay, they'll make $200,000 in gross profit in China instead of 500,000. Why would you sell a vehicle to Warren in Thailand for $10,000 in gross profit when you're going to make $200,000 in gross profit in China? It doesn't like once you make the vehicle and you have a choice, what are we doing with this vehicle? Why would you sell it to a customer?
So you thinking that they will make this vehicle for their own sake, they'll create a fleet and it becomes a taxi company.
I think that there will be markets where, like maybe China, maybe Japan, whatever, there will be markets that won't allow Tesla to own its own Thailand. There will be markets that won't allow Tesla to own its own robotaxi fleet, and they will partner with someone. And
Hmm.
all right, the vehicle is going to generate $250,000 in gross profit off the life over the life of the vehicle. The partner will pay $200,000 to Tesla for the vehicle, or Tesla will get a cut of the robotaxi revenue. And effectively, if the vehicle generates 250,000 in gross profit, Tesla gets the lion's share. Excuse me, gets the lion's share of that profit. But it doesn't have to be. If Tesla only gets $50,000 in gross profit from somebody else running as a robotaxi, that's 5 times the gross profit of selling it to Warren.
Yeah.
So why would they sell a car to a customer for personal use?
Okay.
And within the Tesla community, a lot of people don't like this. Like, but I want to buy a Tesla. That's nice. Okay, get
It
ready to pay
will
two
still
hundred
be
fifty
available
thousand
to
dollars
you.
for it.
It may still be available to you. That wouldn't be stopped, wouldn't it?
What would be available to you?
The taxi, the car to a consumer will still be available,
Not
or
from Tesla. You could buy a BYD. You could buy a Ford.
even Tesla
If
makes a
I was
conscious
Tesla, I would.
decision.
It'd be available to you if you're willing to pay $250,000 for the car. Right now, the car's $50,000. How many of these people who say I want to be able to buy a Tesla are willing to pay $250,000 for a Tesla? Right?
Mm.
When you can buy a BYD for $40,000, you can buy a Porsche. It'd be cheaper to buy a Porsche than to buy a Tesla RoboTaxi.
Then it
Buy a
means the Tesla
Mercedes.
becomes like a rare asset then for a consumer if you want to buy.
I don't look. I'm going to continue to own my Model Y.
Okay.
Like if I think next year before all this happens, I will buy a Model 3 or something else like it. If the robo-taxi network comes to Thailand and I can run one of my vehicles as a robo-taxi, assuming I can make decent money at it, I would probably run my vehicle as a robo-taxi. I
So
have a Model 3 in America. I expect to run it as a robo-taxi when the robo-taxi fleet goes live.
so let's okay, get, I think I'm writing down also because I've some 2028 and 2028. How many robotaxis are there, which Tesla robotaxi across the world? Or I'm sure you've done some maths. It doesn't have to be accurate, but just spit over some number.
I would expect in 2028 Tesla will have in the ballpark of 1 to 2 million in the United States and probably more than 2 million in China. But
Okay.
this may be like these are guesses. It could be half these numbers. It could be
Totally,
more.
totally, totally,
'Cause,
totally.
in 2026 they start building Cybercab.
Yeah,
And Cybercab I don't know. My general understanding of Cybercab is that a Cybercab factory will produce 2 million vehicles a year. So if they build a Cybercab factory in the US and in China, and that they will ramp quicker because they're simpler.
yeah,
Um, so they'll reach full production quicker than they do with a regular car, which takes 18 months. So if they build a Cybercab factory in Texas and they build a Cybercab factory in China, that's 4 million vehicles a year. So, in 2027, they may produce 4 million Cybercabs. And they might do a third Cybercab factory in Europe. I don't know. It depends on whether Europe says yes to RoboTaxi.
but right now there is no cybercab factory, right?
There is a Cybercab line inside Giga Texas.
Giga Texas, but that's
I don't,
just
I
the
don't know if,
line.
I don't know if line is the correct word. There is a Cybercab production area inside Giga Texas that is half the footprint of the Model Y production area.
But it's possible that if they go into this cybercab model, this kind of thing, the whole Giga factory, Texas factory could be dedicated to producing cybercab only, or
I don't think they would stop producing Model Ys.
oh,
They might stop producing Cybertrucks, but I doubt it.
oh,
Um,
okay.
I don't think they need to displace existing lines. They could just build another building if they have to.
So cybercabs and robotaxis, they're same thing or they're different?
Robotaxi is any Tesla vehicle can serve as a robotaxi. Robotaxi is the service,
Okay,
right? Um, Cybercab is one variant of a vehicle that can operate as a robotaxi.
okay.
It's
So
a
how do
two-passenger vehicle with a fairly large storage area in the back.
let's talk about US. How do they run the cybercab? How do they run this robotaxis? Both under Tesla?
I don't understand your question, how to get into.
So let's say if they're in US,
Yeah.
imagine the situation in US, and they have cyber cabs, they have robo taxis, they both undergo under
Okay.
fleet, Tesla fleet.
They're all robo-taxis.
Yeah, yeah.
You have Cybercabs, Model Ys, Model 3s, Model X's, Model S's, Cybertrucks.
Okay,
What happens is you have an app on your phone called the RoboTaxi app, and you say, I need a ride. And
okay,
my guess is it gives you options. There's a
okay,
Cybercab option, there's a Model Y option, there's a
okay,
Model X option.
okay,
I'm guessing that if you have 6 people who want to take a trip, you're
okay.
not going to fit in a Model Y or a Cybercab. You request a Model X. If
Mm-hmm.
you have, one person, then you would probably request a Cybercab unless you want to ride in a bigger vehicle.
True, get it.
Yeah.
Clear. Now the number, total number again, these are just guesses, napkin maths, as you say. So 2028, you are saying 4 million cyber cabs.
No, I'm saying 4 million vehicles operating in the robotaxi fleet. And it's a guess. It's
Yeah,
just a
no,
guess.
totally. And then what does that become of the revenue from the robotaxis?
So my expectation, and I might be wrong,
Yeah,
wrong
sure.
about a lot. My expectation is that a typical robotaxi will generate in the ballpark of $50,000 a year in gross profit. So if you have that Cybercab, Model Y, whatever, ballpark figure, they will generate about $50,000 a year in gross profit. So if you're generating $50,000 a year in gross profit, you have 1 million vehicles,
Mm-hmm.
that's $50 billion a year in gross profit, which is 2.5x the 2024 gross profit, I think, maybe more than that. If you have 4 million of them, then it's $200 billion a year gross profit, which is, I think, Apple's gross profit for last year.
Which is almost two times to the revenue Tesla has posted in 2024, 97 billion, right? That is the total revenue.
Yes, yes,
Total revenue. So the
yes. And it's just,
profit, the profit
it,
will be more than the revenue in 2024.
yeah,
That's what.
and just to be clear, the numbers, if you assume the typical vehicle drives 100,000 miles a year, which is not
Mm,
much for, it doesn't need to take a nap,
mm,
right? It averages 30 miles an hour, 50 kph for 12 hours a day, 15 hours a day, whatever. If you run the numbers, you end up with 100,000 miles or 150,000, 160,000 kilometers a year. Um, if you assume half of those miles are paid, I think you end up with 60% of those miles paid. But if you optimize the network, you probably get to 60% of miles are paid. Some of the miles are dead miles, right? You're driving from the last ride to the next ride. You're not getting paid for the distance in between. You're driving to go get charged at the end of the day, and you're driving somewhere to position yourself for the next day. Those miles aren't paid. But if you assume, let's go with 60% because I think that's more realistic. So if you're generating $1 a mile in revenue, which is a good ballpark guess, I think the number will actually be higher. But let's assume $1 a mile in revenue. That's $60,000 in revenue. Well, what's the cost of running a robo-taxi? It's about 10 cents what was the number? About 20 cents a mile, let's say, of total mileage. I think Cybercab will be less, but let's say 20 cents a mile average across the fleet. That's $20,000 in expenses on $60,000 in revenue. It's $40,000 a year in gross profit. Now, I think early on the price has to be higher because you don't have enough vehicles to satisfy demand. This is a critical point that I feel like a lot of people miss. A lot of people are like, well, the price should be this, or the price should be that. Well, the price is driven by demand and supply. So if you don't have enough robo-taxi vehicles, Cybercabs, Model Ys, Model S's, whatever, then and you lower the price and then there's too much demand, then people have to wait too long and it's an unpleasant experience. So as long as you're cheaper than Uber, which is like $3 a mile. So if you're at $2.50 a mile, you probably have a lot of demand. As you come down to $2 a mile, you have a lot more demand. And so you can't lower the price too much because you don't want people to wait too long. So I think it's actually going to be a long time before the average price per mile is $1. And as you bring the price down, you start to expand the market to, let's say, some people are higher cost vehicle owners. I don't know how much people would understand this, but in the United States, if you have bad credit, your cost of financing a car is higher and your cost of insuring the car is higher. If you have a bad driving record, you've been arrested for drunk driving a couple times, your cost of insurance is much higher. Um, if you don't drive a lot of miles, then your amortization of the vehicle is higher per mile. So there's a certain subset of drivers that, as you bring the price point down to say $1.50, like the average in the United States is around 70 cents a mile, but there's a chunk of that population who their cost is $1.50 a mile. And if you take somebody who's got a history of drunk driving and doesn't want to get arrested for drunk driving again, and you tell them it's the same price to ride in a robo-taxi as it is to own your own car, and you'll never get arrested for drunk driving again, and it'll drop you off right at the front door. It'll pick you up right at the front door. You never have to clean the car. A lot of hassles that go away with it. That there's a subset of people who are going to hop in at $1.50 a mile and stop owning a car. And that's where you really start to expand the market. You get down to $1 a mile, it's even bigger. When you hit 70 cents a mile, that's average. Half the market is saying, I want to ride in. Half of the vehicle owners are giving up their cars. And I think that they can run Cybercab profitably at 50 cents a mile, which is, you're going to need 20, 30 million robo-taxis in the United States, maybe 50 million.
So I think the estimates, whatever the guesswork is from 2028, it it has following assumptions, which are the regulatory approval is not a problem in United States, in majority of the states. In China, it's not a regulatory problem. All the regulatory approvals are there.
China's easier. Because so in the United States, you have different states, and Massachusetts will be difficult, and Michigan will be difficult, and New York will be difficult. But Florida has a law that says local governments can't regulate and can't tax robotaxi. Only the state government decides, and the state's government has said yes. It's already just basically said yes. Texas has been very friendly in Austin, and I would expect that to be statewide. California has a set system that Waymo is using and Cruise has used and others have used, and Tesla's just following that pattern, and that should be statewide. Well, Texas, California, and Florida are 30% of the US population right there. Now you add in Arizona has robo-taxis, that's going to be straightforward. Nevada is going to be straightforward. And I think there's something like 10 states that adopted Florida's law, the same law as Florida. So I think it's reasonable to say more than half the US population will have access to robotaxi certainly by 2027, by sometime in 2027. So by 2028, you're going to have 80% of the US population have access to it.
And the production is not an issue.
And China, if the Chinese government says yes, you might have the whole country. And there's like 50 cities and more than 1 million people in China.
And China government has been very, very friendly to Elon.
Well, the thing about China's government, at least for now, you never know, things change, is they are very tech forward. They want to be leaders. And if having robo-taxis providing low-cost transportation makes China's economy more competitive, they want it. And I don't think it's hard for Elon to make that pitch. I'm going to make your economy more competitive if you allow me to run robo-taxis. China will say, we want to be more competitive. We want to be seen as the leaders in technology. Let's do it. And maybe they'll license to BYD, and BYD will. My expectation is the first vehicle manufacturer to license FSD will probably be BYD, because BYD is already a Tesla partner.
Yeah. So BYD, but BYD works separately, right? I mean, it's that money is not going to come to Tesla if BYD is running
No,
that.
no, they would license from Tesla, and there would be some sort of licensing arrangement. So, are they paying for the license? Is Tesla getting a share of? They're probably running in Tesla's robo-taxi network, BYD vehicles, and Tesla gets a percentage of the revenue, and BYD gets a percentage of the revenue.
So
And if I'm Tesla, I'm going to demand a high percentage of the revenue because you don't have a choice.
you're assuming that BYD will not have their own capability.
So, this is a very popular question, and I will ask you: does BYD have a fleet of vehicles that have the right camera equipment and the right processor inside in order to generate the data and evaluate the data? And then do they have a training cluster, a compute, a, a supercomputer training cluster in order to train the vehicles to drive? Like, no one is anywhere close to Tesla in developing the AI that's needed to drive on public roads. No one's close.
I think that is a very good question or guesswork, whichever, because I'll tell you my experience. I went for a Tesla trial of Juniper in
Yeah.
Singapore, and the salesperson was sitting next to me, and he was showing me how the FSD works. Obviously, in Singapore there is a restriction on FSD, right? And it was changing the lanes and all that. And that was my first experience of shit like that. And it was like wow, it was basic FSD tricks. But he told me that in Singapore, the people who are selling BYD or who are selling Xpeng, those salespeople, they don't demonstrate FSD facilities of these companies because they're scared whether it will work or it will not work. That's the most I can say.
I experienced Xpeng's self-driving in Bangkok, and it was terrible. It was worse than FSD Beta 2021. It was worse than Tesla's FSD Beta 4 years ago. It almost hit two parked cars. It didn't show traffic lights in the user interface. It was terrible. That was the Xpeng X9, which is one of their high-end vehicles. Their self-driving is crap.
Okay. Yeah, so I think it's safe to assume it's possibility, the high possibility that people will take it from Tesla rather than developing their own, and it makes sense also. We don't know how the future will hold, but it,
Well, I think there's a first mover advantage there. So Tesla has invested billions of dollars. And frankly, they've invested our money because we paid for FSD without getting it for a long time. But they've invested billions of dollars. They've outfitted something like 8 million cars with the cameras and the inference hardware, the artificial intelligence hardware in the car. And they built the training compute cluster to be there to develop cars that will be able to drive themselves. So if you're not there and you want to catch up, how much do you have to invest? How long will it take? And then by the time you get to where Tesla is now, where will Tesla be? And then will the vehicles that you're making be cost competitive with the Tesla network? And in other words, if Tesla's cost per mile is 20 cents per mile and your cost is 50 cents per mile and the ride price is 50 cents a mile, you'll break even. Tesla's making money. Well, why did you invest billions of dollars to break even? You're not going to invest billions of dollars to break even. You're investing billions of dollars because you think you're going to make a profit. But if the market leader is far ahead of you and has pricing advantages and understands how it needs to compete, it doesn't make sense to invest in the first place. So I don't think anyone is really investing the resources needed to develop self-driving or real-world artificial intelligence in the way that's needed in order to compete with Tesla. And I would put it this way: we talked earlier in this conversation about December 21, 2015, SpaceX lands the first orbital rocket booster, and it's clearly changed the cost curve for launching to space, and SpaceX now dominates the global launch industry. So it's in 4 months we'll have the 10th anniversary of the first orbital rocket booster landing. Who else has even tried? Not even China. With all the money China has, with all the money they throw at their space program, they, and they'll launch from the middle of nowhere and let the rockets crash on regular people, right? They still have not attempted an orbital rocket booster landing. I think Blue Origin sort of tried. They did the launch, but they ended up not trying the landing, right? So everyone is 10 years behind SpaceX. So my question to you is, how far is everybody behind Tesla, and why aren't they catching up?
I look, I'm not a, see, in Singapore, I don't know whether you know, Warren, owning a car is like owning a plane, you
Yeah, it's
know,
very expensive.
very expensive.
Like minimum $100,000 for anything.
So the Model Y here is 200,000, 200,000
Yeah.
Singapore dollar, which will be like 170,
Yeah.
165.
But I mean, if you want to buy a Toyota Corolla, it's probably $100,000.
Yeah, and why would somebody buy Toyota Corolla now these days? I don't understand. There aren't so many. It's not very successful in Singapore anymore, the Toyotas. But anyway, so I think the number which I get from you is 200 billion gross profit. We can say
On,
that
on the robo-taxis,
on the robotaxis
it
only.
doesn't count whatever they're making on Megapack and Powerwall and Tesla
Yeah, yeah.
Energy.
We'll come to that. We'll come to
At
that.
that point, it's possible they're still selling cars. I'm not including that. I don't think that'll be a lot of profit. Um, it's it's also possible that they will start making money on Optimus by 2028.
Yeah, I'll come to that.
I don't think Optimus is scaled by 2028.
So
They may
where
make
where
some money on it.
do you have anything else on robotaxi, or we move on to Optimus now?
Um, I mean, I think a lot of people have questions about RoboTaxi, but I think it's pretty straightforward. Imagine Uber with a lower cost structure. Imagine Grab with a lower cost structure. That's what it is.
But if Tesla robotaxi come like this, then Uber is fucked basically.
Yes, and Hertz and all car rental companies are messed.
Yeah, yeah,
Maybe the car rental companies become fleet operators.
yeah.
If Tesla wants to partner with somebody, you partner with a car rental company. They have a lot of infrastructure that fits what you want for a robotaxi fleet, maybe. But I think the rental car companies are out of luck too.
Yeah. Seems like that. What will happen to that small car which Tesla is planning? Where will that fit in?
Well, we don't know that they're planning a small car.
It's a abridged version of Model Y, right?
He- what we believe is happening is probably in October 1st or shortly after October 1st, we're going to hear about the more affordable model or more affordable models. The best, my personal theory, and I'm not confident of this, is that it will be a shorter Model Y, that they will reduce the length by 15 centimeters. They will reduce the height by a few centimeters. The cargo capacity will go from 2,100 liters to 1,600 liters, which is still 300 liters bigger than BYD Atto 3. And because they're reducing the mass that goes into the car, the battery will probably be smaller too. they will be able to lower the price 20% from what a Model Y costs now. I think their goal is a 20% lower price than Model Y. And maybe they can squeeze a little more cost out of it. I don't know. And I think that vehicle, if that's what they're doing, other people think they're just taking an existing Model Y and stripping down, removing the rear screen, replacing the glass roof with a metal roof. I don't think that makes sense. I don't think they get 20% of the cost out. I think to get 20% of the cost out, you have to make a smaller vehicle. And we know they're making a longer Model Y in China and probably in the rest of the world, the Model YL.
So that will be a separate revenue stream, or it will be part of the robotaxi thing. It could be part of the robotaxi thing.
Well, in 2026, they will be selling those cars. When you hit 2028, um, I think they're making these vehicles on the same line as Model Y. So when 2028 hits, my guess would be they stop making the regular Model Y and they focus on the smaller Model Y because it'll be lower cost to operate the robo-taxi network. So it'll have a better economy, better economics in the fleet. And we have RoboVan coming at some point too, which will be another thing.
Yeah. No, I think it's just a variant. Once you have the technology, another variant can come. I think I want to come to Optimus. Before that, let's talk about the battery, the energy business. How's that? I mean, because last time when we talked about some napkin math. Is it panning out according to what you thought, Warren? I
It's
know.
not growing. It's not growing as fast as I thought.
Hmm.
And the the revenue per kilowatt hour or per gigawatt hour has come down faster than I thought. I did think it was going to come down. It came down faster than I thought. China had a surge of battery production and they didn't get as much demand for their batteries as they thought. So the price of lithium iron phosphate batteries fell faster than anyone expected. Not just me. I mean, I got it wrong too. But the price that they were able to charge for those batteries came down, and that meant that the products that are containing batteries prices came down. So Powerwall has been disappointing. It's growing, but it's not growing as fast as I thought it would. Megapack being more important. Megapack is growing. I mean, they had the factory in Lathrop, California. They added a factory in Shanghai, which is ramping. They've announced a third factory in Houston, Texas, which I don't think they've completed building the factory yet. Um, so they're going to go from 40 gigawatt hours of production capacity to 120 gigawatt hours of production capacity by the end of 2026, maybe early 2027. We'll see when they build the Houston factory. Maybe they'll build another factory. The demand is huge. And in particular, there's a demand driver for Megapack that I didn't see a couple years ago, which is AI data centers are going to need Megapack. And Megapack is probably the best solution for AI data centers,
That's a great point.
and they're not very price sensitive, right? They're performance sensitive.
The performance.
And even though the BYD competitor or the CATL competitor or the Siemens competitor might be less expensive, if you're not super reliable and super quick and super low latency in your AI and your battery supply to the AI data center, that's a problem. So
Mhm.
Megapack is tuned better than anybody else to supply AI data centers with battery storage. So I would expect anybody who builds an AI data center to buy Megapacks. And that's a lot. That's a lot of Megapacks.
So right now, I think 2024, the energy business was 10 billion.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, it was about 10 billion. I checked it this morning. And then I think it's 4 years from them. Then what's your napkin math says about the energy business?
4 years from today,
4 years from 2024, that
what
is.
do I think the energy? So I think that 2028, you'll have at least three factories producing 40 gigawatt hours of Megapacks a year. That's 120 gigawatt hours. Probably have at least a fourth one by then and maybe a fifth. So
Mhm.
and you never know like what the problem with making these predictions is you get curveballs like COVID. You get curveballs like,
We all
maybe
know that.
China's going to have
Yeah.
an economic collapse. You can't know. Assuming China doesn't have an economic collapse, we don't have another COVID, we don't have a world war.
No famine. Yeah.
I think that we're going to see um, in the ballpark of 200 gigawatt hours a year of
Mm.
Megapack. And then this the other thing that one of the big things that's been holding Powerwall back and it's held Megapack back a little in the United States is high interest rates.
Yeah.
So if Trump is able to get rid of Jerome Powell and bring in a new Fed chief and the Fed lowers interest rates, which it should have done a long time ago, that will be a big kickstart to solar. Because
Yeah,
solar
that
doesn't
was
make
another
sense if
thing.
interest rates are high because you finance the solar and then your cost of interest is more than the energy you saved. But if
Mhm.
you bring interest rates from 8% to 2%, all of a sudden the economics of solar makes a lot more sense, and then the economics of Powerwall makes a lot more sense. And I should say, loosely related to this, I think Tesla only makes Powerwall in the United States. I'm disappointed that Tesla doesn't make Powerwall in China because I believe that the cost of Powerwall in the United States is around $10,000, maybe $8,000 if you buy a few per Powerwall. In Thailand, it's $25,000 for a Powerwall because of tariffs and other hassles. But if they made them in China, your cost structure would probably be lower, and they wouldn't face tariffs from Thailand on China-made Powerwalls. So I'm just using Thailand as an example, but I think there may be a lot of countries that would be buying Powerwalls if they were competitively priced because they were made in China and they weren't facing the same tariffs. So I think there's hope there. Now maybe Trump is hammering Thailand to lower their tariffs and Powerwall will become more affordable there, but I think it would make sense to manufacture Powerwall at larger scale. I think Tesla's made the decision that Megapack is just so much more important than Powerwall that they don't worry about Powerwall anymore. They,
Yeah.
they make them, they sell them, but they try to get the most they can out of their factory. But I've been surprised they didn't open another Powerwall factory.
Hmm. So what do you think is a good number for 2028? I just want to see how big the company will get for the energy business.
Stock price?
No, the energy business. Let's say 10 billion in 2024.
Well, if they're doing 200 gigawatt hours and they're 200 gigawatt hours would be 200,000 megawatt hours. That would be 50,000 megapacks a year. I got to think. Sorry. 200 gigawatt hours is 200,000 megawatt hours. A megapack is about 4 megawatt hours. So I think that's 50,000 megapacks at about $1 million a piece. Current pricing probably come down from that. That'd be $50 billion in revenue.
So $50 billion. Yeah, okay. I think the robotaxi is worth 200 million gross profit. I can say the revenue around 300,
Billion with a B
200 billion, sorry. And I can say the revenue probably would be around 300 billion. It working at a gross profit of, let's say, 65%.
for RoboTaxi.
Yeah, yeah.
I think the profit margin on RoboTaxi is like 80 or 90%.
Okay, okay. So I can calculate that, and let's say it becomes what?
It depends what your price point is. If your price point is $2 a mile and
Hmm.
your cost is 30 cents a mile,
It's a
well,
lot.
you got $1.70 mile in profit on 30 cents a mile in costs.
Yeah.
Maybe that is closer to 65%. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean that's a kind of a what do you call the initial hiccups and all that we
Yeah.
see that the cost could be high. So about 300 billion there and then about 50 billion here. Now
Well, the 50 billion is revenue, not profit.
it's
The,
revenue.
the,
Yeah,
the 50
300
billion
billion, 300
Megapack
billion we
is,
keep revenue from robotaxi or
and I think that Megapack Tesla Energy is making about 30% margins right now. So if you have $50 billion in revenue for Megapack and you're throwing in revenue from Powerwall and solar, then you're probably talking about $15 billion in gross profit from energy.
yeah, that's true. That's true. So it's about 350 billion dollar company. We're just all hypothesizing.
Gross profit, not that's gross profit. That's not the value of the company.
No, we are talking about 300 billion revenue from robotaxi. We're talking about 50
Oh,
billion revenue from
mhm.
energy.
Okay,
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. That's nice. Now, what is the thing? I know you're excited about Optimus, and everybody is, and Elon is very excited. I think he talked about a number of 100,000 a month or something.
That's
Uh,
down the road.
yeah, down the road.
That
But
might be 5 years away. I
by
think
2030.
a lot of us think he was. Do you know the term sandbagging?
Yeah.
A lot of us think he was understating where Optimus is going to be in 5 years. I think that in 3 years it's hard to read Elon.
Yeah.
I
But
think they're going to be aiming for 100,000 units a month.
he's generally optimistic in his conclusions now.
Well, sometimes he's cautious. People
Okay.
think he's always optimistic. Sometimes he's a little more cautious.
I think on a FSD, I think he was being very optimistic and
Yeah.
especially about the timelines and all that. But Tesla delivers. They deliver sometimes late, but they do deliver.
Well, the robo taxi's running in Austin.
Yeah. So So Optimus, where are you? What are you thinking about Optimus? How does it scale? And currently, I think I just keep seeing some of the random videos. That's it. But there isn't any proof of what.
Well, what I see is in the humanoid robot space, I see two approaches. And I think Tesla's doing both of them, and everybody else is doing only one of them. The common approach is let's train it to do this task. You identify a simple task that's on a factory line or in a warehouse, and you train it to do that particular task, and that does that task well. Um, and Tesla is doing that as well with Optimus. The thing that Tesla's doing with Optimus that I don't think anyone else is really doing is they're training it to understand the real world, training the cars to understand the real world, and they're training the robot to understand the real world. And understanding the real world means there was a recent video, I think it was Dirty Tesla, pulled up to a toll booth or something. The car stopped at the toll booth. He paid the toll. After he paid the toll, the car started driving. He didn't tap anything. The car just started moving like the car knew the toll was paid. He's like, how did that happen? And Ashok, the head of the autopilot team, said, well, the side camera, the repeater cameras saw that the transaction was complete and it understood that meant that it was okay for the car to go. That's a level of real world awareness that a lot of people didn't think the cars were going to have. So I think Optimus is probably 100 times as hard as RoboTaxi. So there's some things about it that make it easier, but RoboTaxis, Tesla FSD operates in a very defined space. It's somewhat complex, right? Because the roads in India are different than the roads in Thailand, are different than the roads in Japan, are different than the roads in the United States. But you're driving on roads. You're not going up stairways. You're not getting in elevators. You're not driving on a forest path, right? You're not driving on a beach. Robotaxi is somewhat limited in the operational domain, I think is the term. Optimus will go upstairs. It'll walk down the side of a hill. It'll go through the woods. It'll walk on the beach. So it has to navigate a much more complex set of spaces than the car does. Now, it's not doing it at 80 miles an hour, 130 kilometers per hour, and it's not doing it with carrying 2,000 kilograms of mass, right? So the risk posed by it operating in these environments is nowhere near as high as the risk of operating a car. And it has more time to react because the car needs to react very quickly, and the Optimus might not need that level of quickness. But still, it has to understand a much more complex environment. The Robotaxi never opens a door. The Optimus needs to be able to open a door. The second thing is the car does not have to manipulate objects. The car doesn't pick something up and put it down. It doesn't twist something. It doesn't turn something. It doesn't push buttons. Optimus will have to operate in the real world with its hands and do things with its hands. So I think the operating in a more complex domain, probably at least 3x is the difficulty of achieving the real world AI that's involved. And then manipulating objects is probably at least 10x the difficulty. But here's the point is there's being trained to do a task, and then there's understanding the real world. And you get to this point where if I gave you a butter knife and said, I want you to unscrew that screw, the robot isn't trained to unscrew a screw with a butter knife, but you would just unscrew it with the butter knife, right? You would figure it out. So the question is, can you train it on the real world well enough that you can give it an inappropriate tool for the job and it's still able to do the job? Can you give it a job it's never been trained to do before and it figures it out? Right? It understands and it tries, and maybe it doesn't do it really well, right? But it does it some, and then it figures out what problems it had, and it uploads the clips to the cloud, and the cloud, notices what problems are our robots having, what are the things they're struggling with, and then a week later, the robot gets it downloaded, and all of a sudden it's better doing that new task that it had never done before. And all the robots improve at every task that any robot learns. So I think there's a lot of challenges to getting there, but the goal isn't to build a robot that can do tasks. The goal is to build a robot that can understand the real world and then do whatever you tell it to do and figure it out if it doesn't know how. And I think it's really hard for people to wrap their heads around that that's what's coming, but that's what's coming. And I think we will be on that path in 2028, but we probably won't be there in 2028.
Okay. So you mean 2028 there won't be robots?
There will be humanoid robots. Tesla will have tens of thousands of them in operating in the company. Tesla will probably have partners, just like Frito-Lay was driving semi or is driving semi. They will probably hand out a substantial number of Optimus to partners like Frito-Lay to work in the warehouse, right? Because warehouse jobs are going to be good jobs for Optimus. Um,
Would
so I
there be
think,
any revenue there?
say again,
Would there be any revenue for Tesla here?
I don't think the revenue will be substantial from Optimus in 2028. I think they're going to be getting close to being significant revenue 2028, 29. But not if you sell 1 million units at $50,000, but you're already making all this money on RoboTaxi, then Optimus doesn't isn't up to scale yet.
Okay. So I think we can consider negligible revenue for Optimus in 2028. It might be just used for the efficiency
Well,
within the company
let's
and
be clear. It might be negligible revenue, but maybe the market notices it by then.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
it might be enough that the market says, "Hey, this is really going to be valuable." I was wrong about RoboTaxi. Now I see where RoboTaxi is going, and the company's telling me this story about Optimus. And okay, I've seen Optimus doing all these tasks, and I'm starting to get an understanding of this real world AI thing. It may be that the market uh, anticipates the value of Optimus before it realizes its value.
That will happen because Tesla anyway is a forward-looking company. It's a forward-looking stock, and if you look at the multiples by the traditional measures, it does reflect, it has factored in some bit of future in
Yeah.
it already. Now we didn't talk about Cybertruck. I think that was not a Cybertruck, or it didn't come out to be. I think it came out to. Warren, I'll tell you one thing. I was in US about a year ago. I was in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And sitting in Singapore, I talked so much about Tesla,
Yeah.
and Elon. In Atlanta, I was disappointed to see there weren't many Teslas, or my eyes were trying to look for Tesla. I got one Uber, which was a Tesla, and it was fantastic. And there was a Cybertruck passing by, and the taxi driver didn't know. And I said, "This is Cybertruck, oh, it's so ugly." That's what he told me. And I was very, very disappointed to hear that. I don't want to hear anything. I have a problem taking anything far too negative about Tesla. So I don't know what's going on that Cybertruck.
So Cybertruck is what we would call a polarizing design. Some people love it, some people hate it. Typically, men like it better than women. Um, and then Cybertruck, the biggest problem is just it ended up being too expensive to make. And with interest rates high, it's hard for people to afford to buy a Cybertruck. So the market is very small for Cybertruck. Now you're taking away the tax credit in the United States. I think Cybertruck would be a small hit in Thailand. Thailand is the #2 market for pickup trucks in the world. But the problem is that the typical Thai pickup truck is a Ford Ranger size pickup, not a Ford F-150 size pickup. And Cybertruck is Ford F-150 size. So you don't see a lot of vehicles the size of Cybertruck here. Um, and then, of course, it's very expensive, and Thai people aren't nearly as wealthy as Americans. So the market would be somewhat limited in Thailand. But I had originally, I tried to figure out how I could buy a Cybertruck, launch edition Cybertruck, whatever they called it, um, ship it to Thailand. I had a shop that would do homologation, so it would be legit on Thai roads, but the tariff ended up being like 130%. So I'm going to pay. I think to get the one I wanted at the time I wanted it would have been $100,000, and then the tariff would have been $130,000, and I might have been able to sell it for 300,000 once I got it here, but it was like that's a lot of hoops to jump through.
Have you driven it? Have you driven Cybertruck?
Oh, no,
No.
I've been in Asia for 2 years. There's no Cybertrucks in Asia.
But does it have any hope in your view?
Didn't say that I was in Europe briefly, but I don't think there's many Cybertrucks in Europe either.
Will it stop production in US, or they'll continue doing that?
I don't think there's a reason to stop production yet. I
Okay.
think that a lot of us think that they're improving their production of the 4680 battery, which right now only goes into Cybertruck. So as they improve production of the Cybertruck battery, the 4680 battery, I think that the cost of Cybertruck may come down a little bit.
Okay.
And we're seeing what may be a surge in car buying in the United States because Tesla's basically out of inventory on Model Y. They're raising price on Model Y, which is a sign that, strangely without advertising, there's more demand. Who knew that could happen?
So Yeah, I think again, marketing advertising is a bit of a. I know you're against. You don't really think the marketing will help sales, but I think I'll just add these up, Warren. Yeah, 300 billion we are adding up from RoboTaxi, 50 billion from here, zero from Optimus, for example. Others maybe 10, 20 billion,
Sure.
and so it becomes about 370 billion, right?
Well, I mean, I think service revenue is currently
It's
close
10
to,
billion.
it's
If it
about 10 billion a year, so that'll probably be 20 billion by 2028.
Yeah, yeah. So I think 20 billion service revenue and
Yeah.
ad hoc Cybertruck plus smaller model, maybe another 10 billion or so. So
Yep.
it becomes 380 billion. Now, if it becomes
I
380
think the
billion,
smaller, if you're selling cars, I think the smaller model will sell very high volume. But I think its margins will be worse than Model Y.
so I think it's not it won't be.
It's really hard to make margin on a smaller car.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, if guesswork, if we assume a $380 billion revenue by 2028, and
Yeah.
if I keep a price to sales ratio of 10, and it becomes a 3.8 trillion company, which is about 3.8 times
And I
to.
think your price to sales ratio is probably the wrong number to use, but you're not talking about a company that's flat. You're talking about a company that's growing fast. So why would you use a price to sales ratio of 10 if the company's growing fast? Because the robotaxi revenue at that point is steep curve up. And then you see that the Optimus, like, does the market see the Optimus revenue beginning to rise? It'll be small, but if you see the path, I mean, Optimus demand is probably more than one per person in the world.
So what are you coming to?
If you made 100 million Optimus a year for 80 years, you probably won't have made it enough because some of them will fall apart. How do you make 100 million Optimus a year? Like I don't know how they're going to swing that, but they're going to need to be making 100 million Optimus a year.
No, but 2028 there is no Optimus.
No, not 2028. I'm just saying when you're looking at the future, when you're deciding what the stock is worth, you're
Okay.
not necessarily using a price to sales ratio when you see this chunk of revenue that's coming in the future that isn't factored into sales at all.
We can say forward price to sales ratio.
Yeah, but then the the
Then
forward
then,
sales number is
then
much
I'll
higher.
have to recalculate the sales then.
The forward sales number is going to be much higher than that.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's true. That's true. So
I
what
mean,
does it
my
become?
long-term future, my future for say 2032 is 100 million robo-taxis making $20,000 a year in gross profit for 2 trillion in gross profit, which is 10x Apple. And you've got a large number of optimists generating a large amount of revenue, and everything else becomes irrelevant, becomes insignificant. But you're looking at 10x Apple in
2032.
2032, 2035, something like that. So how do you the problem is, like, and I don't think this is crazy, right? I don't think it's hard to perceive 100 million robo-taxis. I don't think it's hard to perceive $20,000 a year in gross profit per robo-taxi. Well, that's $2 trillion in gross profit. That's 10x Apple. What's Apple's market cap? 3 trillion?
Yeah, right now, yeah.
10x, if you're 10x Apple and growing, then you would have a more than $30 trillion market cap.
That is
And I'm
2032.
not saying this is going to happen. I think there will be curveballs that get
Yeah,
thrown.
true, 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 true.
But I think that it's not crazy to say we're going to see a $20 trillion market cap by the early 2030s.
Okay, so that's so 2028 maybe we can say 7 trillion, 6 trillion, whatever, or
I'm okay with 3 trillion. I think it'll be more than that, but I'm okay with 3 trillion. I think it might be 5, 6, 7 trillion. It's really hard to know what the market will see.
true, true, true. Now, you are an American, Warren. I just want to pick one thing that which surprises me. FSD is $99 a month, right?
I actually don't know. I thought it was 199 a month for FSD and 99 for enhanced autopilot, but I don't know.
Even if it's 199,
Yeah.
it's $6 a day you're getting a driver, no? Why wouldn't people buy it? It's $6 a day. It's like a Starbucks coffee. You're getting a driver to drive you.
Um, I don't know the answer to that question. For me, I always bought it. I haven't bought it on my current Model Y because there's no FSD in Thailand, but I think it's really cool to own it. I think if you're doing a long-term thinking, it makes sense to own it. I think that once unsupervised robotaxi hits, I think the price is going to go up.
I think it's more about confidence. People have confidence. I think Tesla, I'm kind of a through
Well,
with the.
let me say it differently. Once unsupervised robotaxi hits, they're not selling cars anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know what the price, when I want to add robotaxi FSD to my car, I don't know what they're going to charge me. Robotaxi isn't that valuable in Thailand. It's the same thing in India. Human drivers are so cheap that you're just not making much money on a robotaxi in Thailand or India.
That might apply to China as well, though.
China, no, China's much wealthier than Thailand and India.
But the taxis are not very expensive. I've lived in China for 6 years.
I agree with it. They're not very expensive, but they're probably still more expensive than here, and their population is shrinking.
For sure, for sure.
So the availability of drivers is going down. The cost of drivers is going up.
Okay.
Um,
I think before I leave you, Warren, I just wanted to pick your brains on SpaceX. Like, where is it heading? And I mean, you're so passionate about it. I'm also passionate, but not as much as you for sure. It's not a public listed company, so the information is a problem. I do study Rocket Lab a bit, which is a smaller version of SpaceX.
they've,
And
they've almost tried to land a rocket booster. They haven't quite tried to land a rocket booster, but they sort of tried to land a rocket booster.
yeah, so where is SpaceX heading in terms of, development, valuation? I think it's already $1 trillion, right?
I think that sometime in the next couple of years they will spin off Starlink as an IPO. I think Starlink is headed towards a multi-trillion-dollar company, at least a trillion. SpaceX, I think their current valuation is around 350 billion. But I think Starlink alone will be more than $1 trillion company. But the big thing is Starship. The big technology thing. I don't know if it's the big revenue thing, but Starship is going to be huge. And I think we're going to see a few more Starship launches this year. I think they're going to accelerate Starship, and hopefully by the end of next year there will be a test launch to Mars of Starship. I think that's getting to be over optimistic. Whether we will see an unmanned, an uncrewed flight to Mars late 2026, which is there's a window every 2 years to launch to Mars. So um, I don't know how to value Starship. I don't know how to value Mars. If you build a colony on Mars, how much of that does SpaceX get in revenue? What's the revenue model for Mars? What's the revenue model for the transport system back and forth to Mars? What's the revenue model for the telecommunications system back and forth to Mars? Like these are all questions I don't know the answer to. And I think there are people who have an idea and it's like really, really large because it's like the Dutch East India Company,
Mhm.
which became one of the most valuable companies in the world. So is it that valuable? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I don't know when are they going to IPO though. I'm really, really aggressively or anxiously waiting or excitedly, waiting for the IPO when the SpaceX IPO
Yeah,
can be
and no, that's SpaceX IPO, Starlink IPO. SpaceX will
Starlink.
not IPO. And
Starlink
my
IPO.
expectation is that Starlink will IPO and they will not sell anywhere close to 50% of the company like Starlink will IPO, SpaceX will retain more than 50% ownership of Starlink, maybe 80%. And by only allowing people to buy 20% of the company, they increase the scarcity and they
Mm.
drive up the price, and that makes Starlink extremely valuable. And when they sell 20% of the company at a high valuation rate, SpaceX reels in a huge amount of money that they're able to use to devote more to Starship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see how it goes. Okay, Warren, I think long discussion, but you know so much. I mean, after talking to you, I feel like selling everything I have and buy Tesla stocks. It's not going to happen though. But
I'm all in.
yeah, but
I'm
I
all
don't
in.
be all in. Yeah, well, I don't know. I think I can't be all in. Seriously, I can't be. But I do appreciate your time and your appreciate energy.
Yeah.
Take care, buddy.
Thanks for
Thank you
having me.
so much. Remember me now.